Okay, so before we get into this movie, I just want to set the scene a bit for my movie watching experience because this film in particular kind of represents a turning point in my perception of movies and media in general. So before seeing this, I would never admit if I didn't like a movie when I enjoyed the series or concept. So, for example, I enjoyed the Indiana Jones movies, so the Crystal Skull wasn't bad, it was just different. Or I loved the OG Pixar movies, so something like Monsters University was a good movie. I was just older and looking at it in a different light. Um, no matter the movie, I would find an angle to justify it, and this is just something that I could not do for this movie. I wholeheartedly hate this movie, and I didn't want to. Believe me, if there was anyone on this earth that was gonna love this movie, it would have been me. Um, I love Mila Jovovich as an actress. I have her autograph just across the room. I've seen most of her movies, so believe me when I say, this being the end of something I loved, I wanted to love this movie. But there has been a recent trend in media, and I don't know why, but franchises don't know how to end something, or they just let the ending fall flat. And yeah, if you look at things like How I Met Your Mother, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, all fairly atrocious endings, and all series I was deeply invested in, so I love that. Um, but I am kind of thankful for this movie as well because, along with a few other movies, it kind of taught me to have my own opinion and trust my instincts. So, for example, in the space of a couple of years, um, Suicide Squad came out, which I thought was fun. I enjoyed the aesthetic of, I enjoyed the movie of, but people just hated it. And then this came out, which is a movie I nearly walked out of the cinema for, but has the highest score on review sites, and general fan opinion seems to say that this movie is the best one, which blows my mind, to be honest. Um, yeah, so after these two, I was doubting my own opinions, kind of doubting whether I was watching movies wrong or not looking for the right things, and it finally came to the point where um the thing that cemented this all was The Last Jedi coming out. I saw it opening night and came out of the cinema thinking it was one of the best Star Wars movies. All my friends agreed, things like that. Then once the bad reviews started coming out, and people were like, "It was bad because I'm racist," meh. Um, a lot of people I knew started to change their tone and saying, "No, it was bad all along," and I was left there kind of thinking, um, whether I had even seen the same movie because none of the complaints people were saying either made sense or were applicable to the Last Jedi alone. And the more and more aggressive people got as time went on, telling me it was bad, I decided to see it in cinema again. And my opinion did change in the fact that The Last Jedi is now my favorite Star Wars movie. And fuck it, like, it was this point where I decided to not care what people think and to trust my own opinions. And this has led me to feel my own things about movies. Like, Mother is one that's regarded as, I think a lot of people agree that it's technically good, but a really unenjoyable movie. So a lot of people praise it, saying it does what it's meant to, but I hate what it was doing. But I love the sheer intensity of it. Um, Another one, I hate Whiplash, and I proudly own that. I hate all the characters in it. I hate a lot of the plot beats. I hate Whiplash as a movie, and I know some people think that as their favorite movie of all time, stuff like that. Hate it. And finally, I unabashedly love these Resident Evil movies while hating the final chapter. Um, I thought on my rewatch things would change. Maybe it would lighten up. Like the reverse of The Last Jedi, going into that rewatch, I thought I was going to hate it or not enjoy it as much because I misremembered. I thought the inverse was true. I was going to enjoy this more because I misremembered it. And the great thing about watching a movie at home is it's easier to walk away from a movie that you don't like. So that's what I done. When watching this movie, I stepped away from my laptop 3 separate times, and I started watching this at 1 p.m. and didn't finish until 10:30 p.m. because I just had to keep pausing it to write down my thoughts. I had to just step away from the computer for a bit, and to be honest, through the last half hour, I opened a bottle of wine just to get me through. I came away from this movie with a headache, and whether that was from just agitating thoughts, the nauseating editing, or something else. The one thing I can say about this movie is I hate this movie so much. As much as I did when first watching it, if not more. As I said, I nearly walked out of the cinema, and I've never done that with any movie. No movie has ever produced as negative a feeling to me as this one did. And it's not as if I overhyped this movie in my head. I don't watch movie trailers, so I didn't have anything like spoiled for me. I just had vague plot points like they were going back to Raccoon City, which I thought was interesting, but had me a bit worried, and rightly so. So yeah, this isn't a case of overhyping the situation and then being disappointed. It is just straight up aggressively negative feelings, and I hate being negative. Like, the past few videos are evident of that. I always find the good in things, but this movie is just something else. So without wasting any more time, and if you're willing to listen to me rant far too passionately about something that no one cares about, let's talk about Resident Evil, the final chapter. Okay, so this movie opens with a flashback to before the outbreak of everything, so way back before the first movie, and this is to retcon, and this is nothing new for the series. Some of the movie's openings have been done to retcon stuff before. An example of this would be the establishment of the world dying and extinction, and then Afterlife showing a city perfectly fine. Like, it's been done, but it's not been as egregious as it is here. So one example of this is the backstory of the T-virus. So we have had multiple backstories for the T-virus in the past, whether it was just the general seedy shit of Umbrella to fund its pharmaceutical aspects of the company with fun capitalist shenanigans, whether it was Dr. Ashford trying to cure his daughter's paralysis, or the intent of international warfare by advertising the virus to countries with contentious relationships. So, for example, America and Russia with Cold War vibes. But here we have Dr. Marcus, previously unmentioned, trying to cure his daughter's progeria, which is a condition that involves rapid aging. It's kind of like a reverse Benjamin Button situation. But along this line, they basically wanted to create a magical cure for everything with the T-virus, which, that's fine. It could still be in line with other movies. But they have this motivation of the T-virus being developed by a virologist to cure his sick daughter, and all I can think is, we've done this already. What was the point of redoing this story again, but making it a different condition.
Marcus discovered the T-virus. Once injected, it would detect and repair damaged cells within the body. It was a miracle. The life of Alicia Marcus was saved.
They could have just left this as Dr. Ashford and retroactively made him a bigger position in the company. Like, he is a well-established name in the games, so... Well, not well-established. He is an established name in the games, so they could have just played that up. Also, apparently the first incident of the zombie virus was in, like, Brazil or something, with some kid having an allergic reaction.
They're over here! He's not breathing.
And, like, eating all the people that are on the gondola things instead of, you know, the mansion incident or Raccoon City, which we know already. But it was this incident of the kid dying and turning that made Marcus be like, shut down the T-virus, and this led to a revolt within the company. But it's just so bizarre that this random kid that has, like, no connection to Umbrella just randomly got infected, and there was no leak, no nothing. Like, that was kind of a big point of the first movie, that it was the T-virus getting out, but here it's just casually in a different country. Okay. Also, a big selling point of this movie, I guess, is the fact that Ian Glenn is back, because Game of Thrones is one of the biggest shows in the world in 2017, so we need to get one of its stars that was in this series previously to boost the reputation of the movie. But just like Game of Thrones, this is also a horrific finale to a series, so choices. Also, with the introduction of Ian Glenn, it brings up a lot of changes to his character. So as we saw in Extinction, he was kind of just a researcher, a bit high up in the company, that he was still protected, but a researcher nonetheless. He was reporting to Wesker. He was just doing what he was told, and when he decided to go off the rails, he could be fired by a bodyguard on Wesker's authority, things like that. Like, he was not the end-all be-all of Umbrella. But in this movie, he is one of the co-founders of Umbrella. He holds a 50%, he's a 50% shareholder majority person, which I guess Umbrella has no other shareholders if it's just Dr. Isaacs and Dr. Marcus. And Wesker is like his lackey who acts as a mindless slave.
Close the program down.
James, we're gonna be ruined.
My mind is made up.
Pity.
Happily carrying out, like, assassinations and things like that for him, just like mindlessly doing what he's told. And considering Wesker in the previous movies was shown to be like a lead figure in Umbrella, but is now a subordinate to Dr. Isaacs, who has had an upgrade, it's just... This movie changes so much that I feel as if maybe Paul just wanted to make another movie, but the Resident Evil movies had an established fan base, so he pivoted into making this movie that tries to go for drama. It goes on about the internal dynamics in Umbrella and the socioeconomic climate of the world as it's approaching this epoch that they're going to release. And it's just like, the motivating factors of the actions of a pharmaceutical company on the brink of collapse is interesting, but this isn't what you establish. This is the 6th movie in a franchise. follow what you set up. Okay, so it's also at this point where I want to talk about the filming of this movie because yikes. So we have this quiet, intense scene between Isaacs and Marcus where it's just the two of them talking, but it's filmed on like handheld shaky cam, and this is an intimate conversation, but it can't be a static shot, like it shakes the whole time. If anything, it kind of reminds me of the first Hunger Games movie. Like, there are shots where it's just of Jennifer Lawrence standing there, but it'll be shaky. It's the exact same vibe. And that movie is often called ugly and criticized for its camera work. And this movie just decided to ramp it up 100%. So, yeah. It's also at this point where we get another backstory for the Red Queen, because everyone's backstories are getting rewritten. Where in the previous movies, it was established that she was a rogue AI with the likeness of a head programmer's daughter. And it was a fan theory for a while that was Dr. Ashford and Angie, but the thing is, Dr. Ashford wasn't a programmer, he was a virologist, so that was mostly fan canon for a long time. But I feel as if at some point it was addressed by Paul that may have had some weight, so yeah. But yeah, in this movie, the Red Queen is specifically designed by Isaacs to be intentionally malicious and dangerous instead of a security AI, and it's based off the founder's daughter, but it was Isaacs that programmed this, so I guess it was done out of like spite and cruelty to just have a final dig at his dead partner to make this malicious AI a representation of his daughter and what people were gonna remember her as.
To help him control the now vast interests of the Umbrella Corporation, Dr. Isaacs created a powerful artificial intelligence. Isaacs used the likeness of Alicia Marcus for the computer's interface. Isaacs called the computer the Red Queen.
But this is going to get a lot more frustrating, so just wait a second. So, it's also, this is all like the first 5 minutes of the movie as well. I have a lot happens. So it's also during this like montage exposition that it's revealed that the US government blew up Raccoon City and not Umbrella. So what was initially categorized as the feelings of a private company trying to cover up their tracks, the US government is now aware of the infection and decided to take a very stupid approach to it. So decided to cover up something that wasn't the government's fault and to protect Umbrella despite the big danger they posed to the world. Like, it was a big thing in the novels that Umbrella having their own nukes was a threat to the US security, and that was one thing that like got everything set up for extinction. But yeah, the US government is just trying to protect Umbrella for some reason, and instead of making it a public incident and letting everyone know what's going on and how to avoid this airborne infection, they decided to deal with it this way for some reason. And yes, given the past year, we have been in a pandemic, and we have seen that no country besides New Zealand has had the capability to deal with a virus of any kind. I still think that that's just a stupid change. Like, it doesn't make sense. And finally, during this intro, it is revealed that the Washington last stand that we saw at the end of Retribution was just a trap by Umbrella to take care of the last of humanity and to trap Alice so that she can be in their captivity, which As you may remember, Alice was locked up in an umbrella facility, being tortured for information with no way of escaping, and it was Wesker that broke her out with the help of a lot of people who had motivations not to help Umbrella, including her friends and love interest. Okay. Why, if Wesker was still working with Umbrella, would he break them out of their top secret facility to try and trap and capture her again in a more open and less controlled environment? And insultingly as well, they kill everyone off screen. You don't get to see what happens, even slightly. They don't even make a reference to what happens. And this is kind of insulting because Retribution set up a lot of the game characters to be involved in the finale, and this just gets rid of all of them. And in particular, this is annoying because Jill was like perfect casting, acted really well, and deserved better than not even being mentioned in this movie. But yeah, the books actually, you get to see what happened in the White House, what went down, and it is a fun sequence, but it was clearly like, oh shit, what the fuck do we do? This director has decided to change everything, like, out of the blue without resolving a single thing. So they had to introduce a lot of stuff to make sense. New characters, new enemies, everything, which just weren't in the movie, so yeah. And thus concludes the end of the intro to this movie. This has only been the first 5 minutes of this movie, and I have spent over 10 minutes just talking about it, and what we have is everything is retconned, everyone's backstories are changed, nothing matters anymore, everyone's dead. I hate it. So before we continue on, I have decided to pour myself a drink because it's gonna take a lot of energy to get through this movie. And since this movie decided to bring Game of Thrones back, I'll bring Game of Thrones back too. So we've finished that exposition dump that only took up 5 minutes of this movie. And this is a 2-hour movie, guys. This is the longest Resident Evil movie. And I had that much to say on the first 5 minutes. I want to say things will speed up from here. And they will, but they still won't be going at a decent pace. So we finally get back to Washington. And can we just talk about how fucking ugly this movie is? Especially in the beginning, like, everything is shades of brown and grey, and there's no variance to it, and it legitimately looks like shit. It's so bad. So everything is like destroyed. It looks as if a nuke went off, but we don't get to know what actually happens unless you read the book, which most people haven't. And it's not as if the situation became overrun with zombies or anything and they couldn't fight back, because the whole place is burninated and Alice is the only thing left standing. So there's no humans, no zombies, nothing around. And okay. Also, I will be saying this throughout the movie because it's just so horrendous, but the camera work has never been this bad in any of the Resident Evil movies, and I'm willing to argue this is some of the worst film editing I think I have ever seen. Like, it's not like it's just choppy or like scenes hold on too long. It's extremely disorientating. The amount of cuts in this movie is actually insane, and when you add in all the shaky cam and fast moving cameras, you can never tell what's going on, to the point where it is nauseating. And you may be thinking, oh, you said the same thing in your Apocalypse review. And yes, for a couple of fights, like the Nemesis fight, that was bad camera work. But imagine that Nemesis fight stretched out to a 2-hour movie. Like, this movie has no chill at any point, and it's so much worse than that. Like, even in scenes where nothing is happening, they're cutting like 3 times a second. And while Apocalypse did have fast cuts, it had a steady camera. And at any point in this movie, it looks as if the cameraman is losing their balance and trying not to drop the equipment. It's so bad. And you have to remember, this movie was also released in 3D. So in the cinema screen, I actually had to take off my glasses because I was feeling sick. And I'm not someone who gets easily motion sick or disorientated. It's just that bad. So Alice gets attacked by a flying BOW. In particular, it's the bat bug thing from Resident Evil 5. And it results in a car chase, which I imagine could have been fun. But when you have a brown bug chasing a brown car, surrounded by brown buildings and a brown sky, on a brown dirt road with Alice wearing brown and covered in dirt, you legitimately cannot tell what's going on. And it's not fun to watch. Stupid action scenes are what this series does best, and this movie cannot do that right at all. And again, with this color palette and the constant cuts, it's so hard to make out what's happening. Like, it will cut from multiple different angles and like closenesses of Alice's face in such a quick succession. I don't know if they're going for high energy or something, but Jesus Christ, it's Okay. So Alice ends up in like a lab or a bunker or something, and this is where we get the wonderful view that this movie has so many jump scares, it's kind of ridiculous. So to set the scene, she's walking through this lab or bunker, all the lights are flashing, and there's blood but no bodies. Another thing, this movie is surprisingly goreless and bloodless, but we'll discuss that later. Slow creeping around, and she knocks like a flask over, and instead of just a loud thud in a quiet environment, it's accompanied with a screech of a musical sting. And why? Then about 20 seconds later, a fax machine turns on, and again, it's accompanied with like a high-pitched ear-graining sound. Then the Red Queen shows up, and again, it's a big jump musical thing. And by the time there is some sort of threat, the scene has been deflated so much with all these false scares that you don't care. You don't care when a zombie shows up because you have just seen 3 different jump scares in the space of 1 minute. And like, this movie has no tension when it tries to be. I have said when the previous movies have done tense scenes well, for example, the motel scene in Extinction or the house scene in Retribution, but this movie just doesn't have any of it. And I'm gonna feel a bit bad about this criticism for a second, but so the Red Queen in this movie is played by Mila and Paul's daughter, and for plot purposes, which I don't like, it's a good choice. It works for the plot, but she is not a good actress. When she speaks, she's so disinterested.
You come here to gloat?
My satellites show there are 4,472 humans remaining on the surface of the Earth. They will cease to exist in under 4...
It's the worst performance of any of the Red Queens, and I don't feel good here roasting a child, because I don't think the one in the first movie was particularly good either. I don't think any of them have been particularly good. But out of the 3 Red Queens, and I guess throw the White Queen in there as well, because it's the exact same part, this just felt off, and this is the biggest presence the Red Queen has had in any of these movies. So it is something that needs to be said. But with the Red Queen showing up, she gives us the plot of this movie. And it's just as infuriating as the introduction exposition. So she's like, there's only a few people left in the world, and they're gonna die in 2 days. And it's like, why? Why are they gonna die? There's no established plot against them. And if they've been surviving until now, it's not as if they're all gonna suddenly drop like that. But it acts as a ticking clock, so it shows you the world's current population, and it's just like ticking down as if someone's dropping every second. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, it doesn't make any logical sense. Like, the implication is that humanity is being taken over. But if you've been surviving for 10 years up to this point, I'm gonna think that you're gonna be a fucking good survivor and not just drop very quickly like that. And they're not spontaneously gonna disappear. If anything, there's a very vague organized attack from Umbrella, but it's never established that it's happening around the world. If anything, it seems like it's a plot to get Alice, but it's just made so unclear. And so when she's like, humanity's gonna go extinct in 2 days, the explanation is like, because they're dying. Duh. Like, why? Why? And also, the Red Queen is like, there's an antivirus in Raccoon City. Like, that shit wasn't effective at any point in this series. Like, why would it be now? And you know, like, you can try to reason that, oh, Umbrella have continued to work on it. They've developed it. But you know that's not true, because you see a character turn up who has the virus from before the outbreak. And it's like, no. In Extinction, it was made explicitly clear that Alice was needed to synthesize a cure. That was kind of the whole driving motivation of that movie, to get Project Alice, so she can be made into a cure and stop this. And even with the antivirus, it was made clear that it's not effective. Like, the Red Queen wouldn't let Rain go because she knew the antivirus wouldn't work, and it didn't, and that was only a couple of hours after being infected. And similarly, we know that Angie, who was infected with the T-virus, needed to be taking like hourly doses of the antivirus because it wasn't enough to get rid of the T-virus, but maintain that healthy level of curing her paralysis. The only time we've seen the antivirus work was on Carlos. And even then, it's like, that was right as the outbreak was happening. So the fact that they're like, oh yeah, that antivirus is fine now. It's like, no, sweetie, no, it's not. Also, can we just talk about the fact at this point the Red Queen is like, it's in my coding that I can't harm any employee of the Umbrella Corporation. Like, the first thing we see in this whole fucking series is you wiping out an entire facility of Umbrella employees. What the fuck are you talking about? That you can't harm any of your employees? That's literally the inciting incident of this franchise. What? Okay, so if you can't tell, the plot points of this movie are what like drives my like anger and bad feelings in general towards this movie. And this movie has a lot of exposition scenes where they just go out of their way to shit on stuff, so strap in. Wesker, it's also revealed that Wesker pretended to give Alice her powers back even though we saw the T cells go into her body and start to reform. Okay, that's not my issue. My issue here is that Alice is not currently infected with the T virus and does not have any T virus cells currently in her body. But the Red Queen is like, once you release the antivirus, anything infected with the T virus will die, and it's made out to be like, oh no, Alice is going to die, she's going to sacrifice herself for the good of humanity, and it's like, what? No? Like, I was sitting there the whole time I watched this movie, I was like, am I missing something? Because Alice isn't infected with the T virus. They went out of their way to show that Wesker didn't infect her, so she wouldn't be affected by the antivirus in any way. And even then, Alice, as a person, kind of mutated with the T virus to the point where she was still alive, she was still a person. So getting rid of the T virus wouldn't kill her, it would just leave her alive still. So the whole idea of Alice being so noble, sacrificing herself, I was sitting there like, this isn't a sacrifice. She's not going to die. And then, spoilers, at the end, it's revealed that she doesn't die, and it's like a big twist, like, how is she still alive? And it's like, because there was no threat. She doesn't have the T virus in her body anymore, guys. Think about it first. Oh my god. Okay. So, the Red Queen ends this infuriating interaction by saying, 10 years ago in the hive, we both failed. And arguably, no. The Red Queen acted to stop the virus from escaping, so she locked down the facility and killed anyone who could have been infected. It's a bit harsh, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Like, it would have worked, if not a bit extreme, but she wasn't letting that virus escape. Alice, on the other hand, escaped the facility perfectly fine, not infected, she wasn't spreading anything, fine. Who actually did feel was Kane and Dr. Isaacs in Apocalypse, because they infected and tested Alice. They reopened the hive to understand what happened, thus letting all the zombies escape. And they just released everything and acted the worst way in every situation. So no, Mrs. Red Queen, I do not agree in any way that you both failed, and in fact, you both succeeded in what you were trying to do. It was other people's intervention that caused this. So, taking a breather for a second, Alice is on her way to Raccoon City and gets into a car crash because there's a trap laid down on the road with spikes, and she sees this lovely umbrella-colored motorbike sponsored by BMW, and when she goes to use it, oh no, it was a trap, who would have guessed, and she gets ambushed by a group of soldiers, and they suspend her in the air in the trap, and Jesus Christ, the way this is shot is insane. So this could have been this could have been a cool action scene. The choreography looks decent and the premise is fun. It's like that bit in The Last of Us where Joel is strung up and all the zombies are coming to get him. But what ruins it is the fact that she is spinning the whole time. The camera is spinning wildly around her. It's jumping to different angles. Like every time they shoot one of their guns, the camera angle changes, but they're shooting like machine guns, so it's constantly like jumping like a seizure, and I just you have to see it to believe it. I cannot express how badly this film was shot. And after all of this, hilariously, she tries to get back on the bike again and gets captured anyway. So thank you for the nauseating action scene. I hate it. So when Alice wakes up, she wakes up in this like Event Horizon-esque like thing. It's like really quick cut, edit, shaky thing. It looks stylistically like Event Horizon more than Resident Evil. It tries to be unsettling, and it's at this point where it's revealed that Dr. Isaacs is back, and he's in this like tank thing, getting survivors and bringing them to Raccoon City. And when you're like, wait, the fuck? You got laser grid to death. It's just waved off, and Alice is like, oh, you're a clone. Ha ha ha. Okay. So in Instinction, it was made clear that the clones are not perfect replicas. They were often depicted as defective or not up to the abilities of the original person. And they tried really hard to clone Alice. Like, you got up to nearly 100 trials when we were seeing it. And they could never make a good enough clone of Alice. But we are made to believe here that Isaacs made a clone who was capable of running facilities and mutating zombies just like that, but can never replicate it. Also, really bizarrely, this movie has a really weird religious element to it that, like, they try to put in whenever they talk about the backstories and stuff, but it's just really weird seeing Isaacs in this van surrounded with crucifixes, telling everyone that Alice is a non-believer and needs to be cast out, and that they're gonna cleanse the world in a Noah's Ark kind of situation. And the plot point goes nowhere, and I hate it. We'll get into it a bit later, but it's a stupid addition. It was so unnecessary. Also, it was clearly evident that Paul was a fan of Mad Max Fury Road, because this whole section feels like a ripoff. From the aesthetics to the colors of the cars to the chase sequence. This is a Mad Max scene, and what's annoying is they already done Mad Max in this franchise with Extinction, but Extinction was just its own movie still. It was just copying kind of aesthetic things, but this movie tries to lift straight up action scenes from Mad Max, but because it's done so much worse, and they don't have the slightest idea on how to make an action scene look good in this movie, which hint, it's in the camera work. A big thing the Mad Max Fury Road got right was the following line of engagement. So if the point of excitement was happening here, the next shot would start here and move from there and continue on. But this movie doesn't know where to focus your attention, and it's a big part of the disorientation. So when Alice gets cast out, it's that scene from Game of Thrones where someone is chained to the back of the caravan, and they're forced to travel by foot behind a convoy. And yeah, Ian Glenn was also involved in that scene because it was the Calosaur situation, but yeah, there's just zombies here now as well. So okay, one extremely frustrating thing about the action scenes in this movie is that characters keep appearing out of nowhere. And the movie acts as if the character can't see them, we can't see them, so it will be like a wide shot of Alice looking in a direction, then it goes to a close-up, and someone is magically behind her. And usually I do not care about continuity shit like this. As we all know, if you notice something like that, a wizard done it.
Ah, yeah. Well, whenever you notice something like that, a wizard did it.
But it happens so much. Like, they just didn't care about the action scenes. Like, in the space of 20 seconds, on top of this car, we see two separate characters turn around and get attacked by someone who wasn't previously in the shot. And couldn't have been hiding anywhere. And it was at this point when I gave up my first attempt in watching this movie and took a bit of a break. So, Alice escapes by cutting off Isaac's hands and using it to drive away on the fabulous umbrella BMW bike. And they try to gun her down as she's driving off. I will give this movie credit when it's due. This is a kind of fun scene. They're like firing missiles in front of Alice so she can epically drive through the fire. And there's a lot of slow motion, which I appreciate because this movie is so choppy and fast that any scene in slow motion is a godsend. I know that was a big criticism of mine with Afterlife, but please, we need it. Like, please just slow this movie down a second. So yeah, it cuts back to inside the religious van, and it's a really weird body horror scene where Isaac's hand is put in like this sock thing to regenerate it, but it's shot like Jacob's Ladder with a lot of like vibrating scene, like body parts and just high up angles, and Isaac's just straight up vibrating, and it's like, what aesthetic are they going for in this movie? Like, what movie are they trying to go for? Because these like 5 minutes are filled with like the aesthetics of other horror movies and Mad Max, but then later, we'll get into it. So another positive I'll give this movie. It cuts to Wesker's office, and he's just chilling out with the Red Queen, and his office is very aesthetic. I do like it. It's extra as fuck. It has like 1 million chandeliers in it, and it has like these infinity pools off in the side. Yeah. Wesker has taste. And it cuts back to Alice driving into Raccoon City, and there is this fun shot where there are zombies hanging off like the motorway, and she drives past, and as she drives past, they like try and reach for her and stuff, and it's a cool shot. But in a movie that's nearly 2 hours, and it doesn't have a lot of these shots for a movie that's so long, and you know that they used it in every trailer. I actually retroactively went back and watched the trailers, and the trailers didn't make this movie look that good, to be honest. But they did include this shot all over it. And Alice is driving her motorbike and like slams into a metal bar, which should have killed her because we know that she doesn't have the T virus. And should have ended the movie there, which I would have been so happy with. But sadly, there is an insidious part to the story that comes from the production. And if you know, Mila Jovovich's stunt woman got into a horrific motorbike crash with one of the camera cranes after Anderson changed the stunt without telling her, resulting in all sorts of injuries, like half of her face was ripped off, spinal cord damage, paralysis, amputation, broken ribs. The list goes on. And despite this being Paul's fault, the movie didn't pay her out, left her to pay her own medical bills, and didn't address the accident in any way. And it resulted in a big lawsuit, which she thankfully won. But Jesus Christ, like, the sound of it, the production of these movies were fucking insane. like, I didn't talk about it in Retribution, but there was also an accident on Retribution where, like, a platform collapsed, injuring 20 to 30 people, and they include this fun anecdote of, like, when the paramedics showed up, they didn't know who was injured because everyone was in zombie makeup, and it's like, that's not fun, that's not funny, that's, like, potentially life-threatening and insane. Like, I don't know how many shortcuts was taken on the safety of these movies, but Jesus Christ. Don't take part in a Paul Anderson movie. Especially when he has as much free reign as he does in these. And this was like a high-profile stunt performer. Her name was Olivia Jackson. She done like Guardians of the Galaxy, Age of Ultron, Force Awakens, Mad Max Fury Road, funnily enough. And she had big stuff lined up like Wonder Woman and stuff. So it's not as if this was like an untrained stunt performer. She knew what she was doing. It was just the production that like fucked up and kind of ruined this woman's career. But yeah, at least it had the happy ending of her winning the lawsuit. But fuck this movie so much. Okay, so after her failed stunt act, Alice wakes up surrounded by people with guns, including Claire, which, how the fuck are you alive? Where did you come from? Where did you go at the end of the last movie? Why weren't you mentioned? And don't get me wrong, I like Ali Larter as Claire as much as the next person, but if any of the previous cast should have been in this movie, it should have been Sienna Gilroy as Jill. I did mention this before, that she is the most well cast out of the game characters, but also they were setting up a redemption arc for her. Like, she was kidnapped by Umbrella, they got her out of that, they were setting up her to be like the secondary protagonist. And that was just dealt with off screen. They got rid of the main villain of the last movie, like, nope. So Claire's explanation for this was that she was kidnapped on the Arcadia and was going to be brought to the Hive. Sure. And they like took over the helicopter and crashed it, and instead of escaping, they stayed in the same area that the Hive was in. Make it make sense, Claire. Also, the supporting cast in this movie is so unmemorable and so unlikable. They're constantly at each other's throats, pointing guns at each other. They're just so angry and aggressive with each other, and I can't tell you any of their names. The only thing I can tell you about a single member of the supporting cast is that Ruby Rose is one of them, and I can't remember her name. Okay, so after we meet the majority of the supporting cast, Alice and Claire get to have a bit of a DMC together, and it's at this point they reveal that tension that they tried to set up, that if Alice releases the antivirus, then she'll die. And Claire, very, like, not seeing the big picture here, is like, Alice, you can't release the antivirus, you'll die. And it's like, Claire, she's trying to save the world, like, can you just not? So, yeah. They also reveal at this point that they have a spy in Claire's group. And who will it be? Who knows? Is it the one who's really angry and standoffish? Will it be the only one who's nice and Claire actually trusts and gets Alice to trust him too? Who knows? So yeah, as I said before, Ruby Rose is also in this movie, and for all intents and purposes will be considered the love interest for Alice because they have the best chemistry out of any of the cast together, and it is kind of expected of these movies to try and shoehorn in some romantic chemistry. So you had Matt in the first one, Carlos in the second and third, Luther in the fourth and fifth, and now we have Ruby Rose's character, whose name I cannot remember. So, they literally have an army of the undead coming, and they're attacking this fortified building full of traps in like the last of humanity's final fight, and you're watching this and it's like, why couldn't this have just been the White House? If they're going to have the same premise and the same situation, but now we have characters who we know less about and a villain who came out of nowhere. Imagine if it was the White House, you had it like Alice and Jill and Leon and everyone, and it was against the Red Queen, who has been fairly consistent in being a villain in this series so far. But no, now we have a different Dr. Isaacs, who the character has no history with, showing up with an army of undead to fight against Alice Clare and a group of randos who we don't know. So, anyway, they show up. Isaacs releases a survivor, and Alice puts the whole plan at risk to save this one person, because no one in this movie has any foresight to bigger picture, and there's literally an army of zombies chasing her, and no one says anything about it. Like in previous movies, they had a whole debate that lasted about 20 minutes about whether to let Chris free or not, but now immediately when there's an extreme zombie attack, they're like, yep, let's just risk our lives for this one person we don't know. Could have been an Umbrella spy for all we know. And we don't have time for this bullshit. So they use like explosive trebuchets to fight, and it's wild. The scene is actually insane, but it's not in a way I'm excited for. It's like, this is going off the fucking rails so widely that like, and it's like, I appreciate big spectacle and insanity. Like, the New York sequence in Retribution is great. The whole prison escape is great in Afterlife. The birds is insanity and extinction, but we love to see it. But here it's just tired. Like, it doesn't seem as if it's a fun sequence to do, and no one seems to be enjoying it, especially the audience. Although someone is using a nail gun as a weapon, and that's kind of fun, I guess. It's bringing up some Final Destination vibes. So, Isaacs ends up shooting the survivor that's trying to get into the camp. And who would have guessed it was a trap, because now the zombies have gotten in. So, Isaac starts like firing missiles at the roof, something he could have been doing from the start, as it is a desolated building. So shooting any part of it with a single rocket would like bring it down on everyone and problem solved, but no one is effective at doing anything in this movie. So yeah, especially when it's from such a heavily armored tank vehicle thing that they have. Who would have guessed it would have been surprisingly effective to do? But credit where it's due. As I said, there is a bit of a barricade scene. It is fun. The really angry guy fights with a sword and he gets a couple of good kills. Some people die here. Nah, there's not much really to say about it. Also, they have like waterfalls of fire, which is kind of cool, but it's like a good image that they clearly wanted on the poster, but it's like, yeah, nah. Also, with this sequence, the camera learns to chill for a couple of seconds, which I do appreciate. Again, when they done that slow motion, I was living for it, because it gave me a second to like not have my head spinning. Same here, they really wanted to show off those fire waterfalls. But as soon as Alice leaves the building, the editing makes me want to die again, because there's a hand-to-hand fight with like one of Isaacs's right-hand men, and there is a video of this on YouTube. I'll maybe include a clip of it, but there are 120 cuts in this one fight that lasts about a minute. That is insanity. Like, I don't know if they kept messing up the choreography or this was someone's first editing job, but it is not possible that anyone on this earth thought this looked good. Like, that clip you see of Liam Neeson and Taken jumping over a fence is nothing in comparison to this movie. And I don't want to believe that it was a deliberate choice, because it's so bad. Someone should be blacklisted from Hollywood for this movie. But, oh my god. This scene is, like, exemplary. And we'll get into more, but yeah. So, after this is all done, the survivors head for the hive, where Wesker and the Red Queen are having a little drama going down over who should be in charge of security, despite that, you know, being the Red Queen's function. So yeah, Wesker's like, I'm in control, and the Red Queen's like, fine. So what's the point of her AI? So it's at this point where they're running, and someone's like, what was your life before this? You know, casually stirring up some conversation. And Alice is like, I only remember waking up in the mansion. And we'll get into this in a minute, because some shenanigans are about to go down, which will be going on another story rant. But yeah, that's a throwaway line that I hate. Some dogs show up. I can't tell if they look good or not, because at this point the movie is like really dark. I get they were going for an eerie feel with fog and shadow, but you're not doing it right when it's everyone running and there's a lot of fast cuts. And that's saying high action, but the cinematography is saying slow and creepy. It's like, to compare to Retribution, the Moscow scene, that is a high action scene. But when they're trying to be scary with the fog and the dark and the zombies coming out, they let it linger. They let you see them slowly creeping. Imagine that if it was them slowly creeping, but every time they took a step, the camera like cut to a different angle. And multiple people died by these dogs, and I honestly cannot tell you who it was. So yeah, the Red Queen shows up and is like, after the zombie stuff went down, an anonymous file somehow got uploaded to my database by someone we don't know. And it's of an Umbrella meeting a year before the outbreak happened. And this is where we see Isaac's reasoning for everything. And I want you to just settle in for a minute, because yikes. Okay, so you may remember at the start of this review I mentioned that Paul was interested in looking at the socio-economic climate that this movie takes place in and what led to the events, and exploring that, which isn't what this Resident Evil franchise was meant to be. But here we get into like a sociology essay about the state of the world. And it's fucking bananas. So if you bear with me just 1 minute. Who doesn't love drinking rum too early on in the day? So, this file that was uploaded, we see it's Isaac's addressing a group of Umbrella board members, and we see that they're all a group of, like, radical Malthusians who believe that the overpopulation of the Earth is causing war, famine, and global warming, and it's not the actions of, say, a global conglomerate like Umbrella acting in psychopathic capitalism, and just their practices causing a lot of harm due to pollution and things like that. So the goal of Umbrella this whole time, apparently, was to cleanse the world of people, leaving the companies higher up to live in a world where its infrastructure and resources would remain, and they would be able to live in this clean utopian environment. But his arguments for why this would work are based in the Bible. Like, he literally has a copy of the Bible on the table with him as he's delivering this argument, and some problems with this. For one, the previous movies have established that the virus affects animals and plant life, and most biomes have been badly affected in a number of ways. We even see it in this movie where it literally looks as if Alice is driving through the desert, where we know Raccoon City is based in the northwest of America, I think. So yeah, they kind of bring back that idea of the world literally dying. So yeah, it's pretty deserty and dead. What resources are they going to have left to survive on? Second, this is a group of corporate executives. Do you think they'd be able to survive in a world with no power, no food, no heating? All the buildings are destroyed and look as if they've all been nuked. They don't exactly have a diverse range of skill sets from the look of it. It was literally like the board members and the higher-ups. So they wouldn't have the capabilities to survive, and they don't have the infrastructure that they think they're going to have to survive this. And also, if this was their goal from the start, why did they go around releasing the virus in the worst way possible, instead of spreading it in the atmosphere or putting it in their products? If you remember from the first movie, it says 9 out of 10 homes have Umbrella products in them. They waited for an environmental group to infiltrate one of their facilities, get overheard by a psychopath who wants to make money on the black market, have him steal the virus, release it in an underground facility, have that facility closed off, everyone killed inside, have that reopened, and then have some of the key players of Umbrella unaware of this plan, aka Dr. Ashford, who was one of their main virologists who was instrumental in developing the T-virus. And that's retconned now, so it's Dr. Marcus, but in what world is this a deliberate plan? Look, if you want to say, oh, this was a big scheme all along, you can say that they didn't take the right actions in containing it because they realized it would be a good situation. So you could be like, during Raccoon City, they were like, oh, let's just let this escape, things like that. Don't have this meeting set 18 months before the release of the whole Hive and Raccoon City incident being like, this was intentional, because no, it wasn't. Like, who would have guessed that Spence would have been as psychotic as he was and decided to release the T-virus in the Hive as he was escaping for funsies? Like, this fucking movie. And can we just talk about what this decision to have it be intentional the whole time does for the other movies? Like, what was the point of anything happening? Why did they close off Raccoon City and do really harsh infection checks? What was the point of the Nemesis project? They explained that Nemesis was going to be maybe the next step of human evolution if they could control it. Why, if that was never a part of your plan? what was the point of nuking Raccoon City if you wanted to spread it? I get that this movie retroactively said that it was the US government that nuked it, but we know for a fact it was Umbrella. And they even had the cover story of the nuclear meltdown. So, like, what was the point? What was the point? Why not let that whole city just spread? It would have got your goal of, like, global domination a lot faster. Also, what the fuck was the Project Alice in the end? Because Extinction made it seem as if it was for the antivirus. Cloning her, why? This movie also has, in some interactions with the Red Queen, just Project Alice in the bottom corner. Like, what the fuck is Project Alice in the end? Because Afterlife made it seem as if it was complementary to Project Nemesis to see how people could bond with the virus. But according to this movie, people are already bonding with it left, right, and center. And why did you kidnap Alice, then release her, then trap her, then hunt her down when you had her in your hands? And the Red Queen was pretty insistent on killing her, and Wesker wanted to have her free. Which is like the inverse characters. Maybe they were just given the wrong names in the script. But what was the point of anything in these movies if you're going to render it completely useless? These are 15 years worth of movies and 6 entries. And 5 novels. I know continuity is not the strong suit, but none of the other movies completely destroyed the canon like this one did. And so clumsily in flashback exposition scenes that go on for far too long. Like, yeah. And to top it all off, the Red Queen is like, I was programmed to preserve human life, and my programming forbids me from harming any Umbrella employees, which is why she can't do anything about Isaacs or Wesker, which I know I ranted about before, but oh my god. That's literally your whole thing. In the previous movie, you were all about killing. In the first movie, that's all you done. That was your only thing. You just killed a lot of people. And don't be like, to stop the virus from breaking out, because then you also killed people in the laser corridor for fun, who were employees of Umbrella. Oh my god, I'm not going to make it through this review. So at this point, the Red Queen is also like, you need to release the antivirus in the next 30 minutes or the last of humanity will fall. And I've also harped on this, but even if that were the case, the antivirus would take time to spread, to get around the world. Even if they release it right now, humanity is still going to fall because the antivirus isn't going to spread in time. And that ticking clock makes no sense because it doesn't release around the world instantly, so humanity is doomed and they can't change anything now. Can you tell how much this movie drives me insane? Like, I know no one is out here for the Resident Evil movies canon, and they're just for the fun, stupid action, but this movie doesn't even have fun, stupid action, and it tries to go in so heavily with the plot. So after the Red Queen decides to dip out for a bit, the group goes further into the hive, and there's this giant fan thing that they go through so slowly for tension, but it's like creepily lit, slow moving, so again, it's a time to chill out for a minute, even though it's meant to be high tension and like tense. You're like, the camera isn't actively trying to punch me, so I'm gonna enjoy this scene. And it's nice when the fan comes on and the lights come up. The scene is actually well done. It feels as if it's not a part. It doesn't feel as if it belongs in this movie. It feels as if it belongs in something else. Because especially when the fan starts up, you don't know who's gonna die, because it is slow. It's tense.
Hurry up! The power's coming back on! Hurry! Let's go! Come on, kid!
You see Ruby Rose is still in the fan when it starts up, but Alice gets her out, so you're like, oh, she's safe. But then it starts to suck everyone in, and no one is like securely down, so it could be any of them, if not all of them. So yeah, I like this scene, and it is Ruby Rose's character who ends up getting sucked in, and as someone who had decent billing in this movie, I think her name may have been on the poster from memory. It's well done. I like it. It's the best part of this movie. And better yet, the movie wants you to be sad about this death. Everyone stops, the fan turns off, and everyone is like standing there shocked. The really emotional music builds up. And this is the only character you get any backstory on. So this is the only emotional death of the movie, in my opinion. Alice thinks so too, as she starts tearing up. The only other character in this whole series she teared up for was Carlos. So, confirmed love interest. She didn't do that for Luther. She didn't do that for any of the other people you see die. Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting that in this movie, with all the people you see die, none of them have an emotional reaction, except maybe Nemesis, aka Matt. Carlos, because he sacrifices himself. No one in Afterlife or Retribution. And yeah, then you have Ruby Rose's character, so all I'm gonna say is that it's interesting. So they go into the vents after this, and this vent scene is nauseating. None of the characters are moving, but the camera is doing like all these dynamic camera shots of dark vents lighting up, and it's like quick cuts and constantly like moving around the vents. But it's literally just empty vents, or the group like crouching down, like nothing is happening, but the camera is like treating it as if it's a full-on like action sequence. And there is like a blurring ding every time a light comes on as well. Like, come the fuck on, editing. So yeah, they're in these vents. Everyone starts falling down trapdoors. And some of them lead to like giant chasms and cliffs. Some of them lead to like torture rooms. And some of them lead to big cells. And it's just like, what's the architecture here? How does this make sense? Because it doesn't make sense. The one Alice falls into is like an abandoned lab / torture room, but it has like giant meat hooks up and umbrella branded chainsaws, and it's like, for science. And I'm gonna give this a warning, because epilepsy warning for this part, because the strobe lights are really intense, and it goes on for the entire scene. And this is, it would be bad enough as it is, but when you add in the cuts as well, it's like, I honestly think that this scene would give people seizures, like legitimately, without over exaggerating. Do not watch if you're photosensitive at all. But this is like a science facility that people lived in and worked in. We saw how the Hive operated in the first movie, that they had basically pictures of a city skyline outside the windows to make people feel as if it was more livable. So why is there a lab that has torture equipment in it? Umbrella was still a pharmaceutical company. They weren't pure evil. There is also a BOW in this scene, and I cannot tell you what it looks like because the strobe lights and camera angles are so intense, and every time Alice shoots a bullet, the camera angle changes. It's like kind of humanoid. I think that they went for Salazar's henchman in 4. If I was to compare it to a Resident Evil enemy, I think that's what it is, but I can't confirm because you never get that good a look at it. I do think the sequence is just the worst. It is the absolute worst. It has predator vision, which makes me think of those Resident Evil 4 enemies, and the way it's defeated is the best, and also the fucking worst. The way it's defeated is Alice puts one of those torture meat hooks in it, and then runs around the lab like the scene in Shrek where he's running away from the dragon in Fiona's castle. And the chain is like going over itself, going around, and then eventually she just runs out the chain, and the meat hook just like gets it, and it's ridiculous that was how they dealt with a big enemy. That it was I can't even talk because of it. Like, it is that scene from Shrek, but worse because it has worse lighting and worse camera work. And this is also where my second attempt ended. Once I realized that I needed to stop. I think we have a half hour left in the movie, because this movie is fucking long. This movie is so long. And so, it's as once I got back to it and started watching again, it's as if this movie knew how to make me specifically angry, because Alice and one of the other guys, his name's Doc, it's like Claire's boyfriend, are running around and end up in the laser corridor. And it starts flashing back to the first movie, just to remind me of a better movie, and showing me that Paul didn't black out and forget those existed, because he's including clips from them. He's showing like idea of how the set worked. But yeah, the laser corridor is back, and you know what's coming for the end. But they go to the computer console that Kaplan was working on in the first movie, and it opens up to this giant elevator where, if you remember how that sequence worked in the first movie, I don't know how that works, because the walls literally pull back and it reveals this giant chamber, like the Resident Evil 5 elevator where you fight the spider monster, for a fun reference. But it's like, where did those walls go? Where did the laser corridor go? What the fuck is going on with the architecture of this facility? So yeah, as I said, they have a visual reference to that scene from Resident Evil 5 where you try to look for Jill. And I don't hate it, because technically the Hive is shaped like that. But it's amazing that not once in the first movie did they come across this giant elevator that they were apparently in the room for. And it was a room that they spent a lot of time in, went in and out of multiple times, and used that computer. But the walls literally fall. I can't believe in the same scene they were showing clips of the first movie and showed like some of the equipment they left behind from the first movie, and then also just threw the first movie into a fucking blender. And yeah, they're going down. Doc is like, "What is this?" And I actually do like this. Like, just love the amount of anger and vitriol Alice spits out the line, "A Noah's Ark for the rich and powerful," because we love a leftist icon on this channel. I just thought it was a fun line, like very heavy-handed, but we do love it. So yeah, we're gonna get into the climax of the movie, and I may just spend the next 5 minutes screaming, so enjoy. Actually, before we get into the climax, there is a quick scene of Claire escaping the glass cage that she fell into, and she pulls some MacGyver shit with a bullet and what I think is meant to be her lighter from CV. It looks a lot like it, and if it is, that's a fun little reference that I'm here for. But this is the only thing we see her doing this whole movie, so sure. Anyway, it's revealed at this point that the Isaacs we seen throughout this whole movie is another clone, and the real Isaacs has been frozen the whole time. So the real Isaacs comes out, and Alice confronts him, and he pulls out the antivirus from his jacket, which means he was frozen with this antivirus, which means it's the same antivirus from the first two movies. I know in my rant previously you could have argued that, oh, Umbrella could have continued developing it, maybe that's why this one works, but no. He was frozen with it 10 years ago, which means it's the same thing, and something like that that's frozen probably won't have the same efficacy, even though the efficacy of the antivirus was pretty low to begin with. And it's the same one that didn't work on Rain, only partially worked on Angie. And those were fresh batches. And neither of them were actually zombified. They still had living cells in them. And that never acted as an airborne antivirus. It needed to be injected directly into the cells, unlike the T-virus. So even when directly injected into the bloodstream, it was never shown to be good. So what the fuck is going on? Isaacs even threatens to drop the antivirus in the facility, so Alice fails. But from my understanding of the plot, they need to rid the world of zombies so they can live in their peaceful utopia, because they won't be able to survive their Noah's Ark with zombies around. That would be like if they decided to set up a settlement in the middle of the flood. And yeah, they need the zombies away just as much as Alice wants them away for their Ayn Rand utopia of successful rich people. So he is either just stupid, or he is so spiteful to throw away his religious utopia just to see Alice, someone he doesn't know and has never interacted with, feel. I actually can't with this movie. So, nothing makes sense and I hate it. So Doc is revealed to be the traitor, which who would have guessed, since he's the only one who still survived, and it wasn't going to be Claire. Actually, in saying that, fuck it, I wish it was Claire. That would have been a good twist if it was revealed she had like a bug on her chest, like Jill or something, and that's how she survived the Arcadia. They were like, we're not going to kidnap or kill one of Alice's closest allies. We're going to use her against her. And I think that would have been one of the only ways this movie could have been redeemed. And it also would have made sense, like, how her reason for surviving the Arcadia was so bad. But no, that would have been too interesting. So yeah, this movie really weirdly tries to pull the finale from Sherlock Holmes' Book of Shadows, where Alice and Isaacs are playing out prediction fights in their head and trying to put moves against each other before doing it. But like, this is something we've never seen Alice do before. She's never thought out every move and the results of it. And me personally, I've never seen Alice as a tactical fighter. It's just something she's had natural ability and muscle memory to do, as she's a trained security guard. But in this situation, she's analyzing all the scenarios and playing them out for the highest gain.
Don't bother. You don't make it to the ice pick, the decanter, or the fountain pen.
And I just don't understand. They explicitly show in the first movie that she's able to fight without thinking about it, where she fights off the dogs and the security guard. Like, she doesn't know what happened, she just done it, so why is she acting like this now? And Isaacs is also revealed to be infected, which, sure, why not? And he's shown to have Wesker's speed and strength, which his clones would have shown those abilities as well if they were clones of this Isaacs, because Alice's clones showed the ability to have powers as well, so why didn't they? Like, why would clone Isaacs have been like, get me the antivirus and extinction if he was already infected? And why did he mutate so badly? And why am I trying to analyze this as if any of it makes sense anymore? Who knows? But also, if he's infected, he would die from the antivirus. If that's the big tension of this movie and what the Red Queen keeps telling us. He's not. Drink. Okay, so Isaacs also reveals that every clone thinks they're the actual real person. So what kind of existential horror did Alice put her clones through in Tokyo, where she convinced them all to kill themselves en masse for Alice to try and stop Wesker? Like, we also saw that the clones were never that advanced. None of the clone Alices could hold off the zombies in the trials, but the Isaac clones were made before that and with less time, but had the same intelligence and abilities of the real Isaacs. So, to the point where they can't tell who's real and who's the clone. So, yeah. This is the clone plotline I was never happy with. But I think Retribution done clones right, where they were just made for scenarios to play out situations. But the clones in this movie are so bad, and the worst of it all is the fact that Alice is revealed to be a clone of Alicia Marcus, and that's why she has no memories. And let's talk about why that's fucking bullshit. So, in the first movie, Alice almost immediately starts remembering things before the mansion. She remembers talking to Matt's sister about the plan to take out Umbrella. She remembers her honeymoon with Spence. She remembers working as a security guard, how to use weapons, how to fight. She has flashbacks to walking around the facility. That's how they found the antivirus in the first place, remember? And she remembers a lot in that extremely short amount of time before waking up on the bathroom floor. So, that's proof enough that she existed before the mansion incident. We have proof in the story. Second, in Apocalypse, she loses her memory again. Maybe you can say this is where they switch out a clone or something like that, even though that doesn't make sense. But there is a very famous line in the movie that says, "My name is Alice, and I remember everything." So, if you're unaware, in the first movie, and most of the second movie, they never use her name. They don't say her name once. The first time Alice gets her name is in this line, where she says, "My name is Alice, and I remember everything." So she remembered that by herself. And fair enough. Over the space of 2 movies, someone could have said that off screen or something, like when she was talking to Dr. Ashford. But Apocalypse introduces more about her past in both promotional stuff and the novels. We found out her name is Alice Abernathy. She had a family who's been looking for her. She initially had a job in the US Treasury and took up the position in Umbrella when she couldn't progress anymore because sexism in the workplace. And I know what you're thinking. Those books aren't canon anymore, and only the Retribution and Final Chapter books are canon, and promotional stuff isn't text. And normally I would agree. But for one, the papers that had those, like, that information in it about the missing persons report on Alice are the same papers that you see on Jill's wall at the start of the second movie, that have about the mansion incident and stuff in it. And also the Retribution and Final Chapter books use this information still. They talk about her surname, they allude to her childhood in Retribution. It talks about, like, her growing up, how she learned martial arts, stuff like that. And they still use the same name and the same backstory of the government position. In the Retribution novel, she has a flashback to sleeping with high-ups in the government to draw attention away from the goings-on in the mansion in the Arklay Mountains. And that novel is an official tie-in and canon, so none of this non-canon bullshit. Like, this is a thing that Alice has a past, and she does remember it. Also, in the Retribution movie, Ada also explains the nature of the clones' memories. She explains that they're very surface level. It will be who they are, their jobs, things like that, but not specific things, like basic personality and basic stuff. So we would not see a meeting between Alice and Lisa discussing the advantages of her security position to bring down Umbrella for an environmental company to take the T-virus. She would just remember being a soldier for Umbrella. And that is text in the movie. That is in the movie. And I know it feels as if I'm being nitpicky, but it's explicit that Alice does have a past before these movies, and this is throwing it away just for a cheap twist. And yeah, this twist is so stupid, and it takes away from the character of Alice because she's not her own person anymore. It gets rid of what little autonomy she actually had. If you think about the other movies, Alice is fairly passive as a protagonist. Things happen to her. Like, in the first movie, she's an audience surrogate. She just gets brought around. She has amnesia. In the second movie, she's told what to do, where to go. In the third movie, she's a loner and fairly absent, and only takes part in the plot for, like, the last third of the movie or so. So she doesn't have a big, like, autonomous nature to her, and they take away so much, and it makes the movie so much weaker retroactively. Like, I know you can say enjoy the journey along the way even if you don't like the ending, but this twist takes away from that so much. It's no longer a survivor making their way around the world. It's a clone who was designed to make it here. They were predicted to make it here. Even though Alice has abilities that Alicia Marcus never had. She was a degenerative old woman. Where does her fighting ability come from? Where does any of that stuff? Why could she bond with the T-virus? Things. where I think my feelings strongly come into this is the fact that if the movie was bad on its own, fine, whatever. But the fact that it goes so far to hurt the other movies and to change the other movies, I think that's where I personally dislike it so much, because I can't watch the other movies anymore without thinking this is going to lead up to this ending, and it's just, it's pretty sad to think about, to be honest. So after all this exposition and franchise ruining, Wesker gets killed by a door. This superhuman man who we have seen survive nukes, plane crashes, being rained on by bullets, other nukes, a battle with Dania Cardoza and the Melange in Washington, which I said I would explain the DC stuff, and I will. This movie had the fucking audacity to kill Wesker, one of the main villains of Resident Evil in general. When you say Resident Evil, he would be quick to come to mind, with a fucking door crushing his leg. So, now that I've mentioned a bit of the Washington stuff, let's go into that quickly. So, in the books, it's revealed that Wesker tried to bring back some fighters because there was a revolt within Umbrella, and this character called Dania Cardoza is trying to take Wesker's position. So he wants to fight back and figures that Alice would be the best position for that, and temporarily gives her back her powers so she can fight the zombie invasion and the BOWs, things like that. But it is only temporary, so Alice's powers disappear, and Wesker leaves her for dead. And it's at this point where the other characters try to fight Wesker, and they either get absorbed into the Melange, which is this weird creature that doesn't really have a form. It's described as like beautiful and elegant but monstrous, but never really given any real description. But the idea is it absorbs people and kills them like that. So Wesker was going to leave the weekend to Alice to just die by that. But then Jill attacks Wesker and has a pretty gruesome death. Like, Wesker impales her through the eye and, like, blends up her brain, leaving her in, like, a completely brain-damaged state. But in the end, Jill sacrifices herself to save Alice. And Alice gets into, like, a bunker or something to survive the Melange, which only has a temporary form. And that explains why Alice, at the start of this movie, comes up from like underground and is the only one left, because everything was absorbed into this creature that had a temporary form. And that could have been, it would have been a lot to show in a movie, but funnily enough, Retribution was building up for a fight like that would have been giant. So at least we get to see what happened in the books. But yeah, Wesker would have thought that Alice was dead at this point. And Wesker actually makes a point in this movie where it's like, I should have killed you myself in DC. And I don't know if that's like Paul knowing what the books were going to do, or whether... Well, I honestly wish we could have seen that. It could have even been like a 5 or 10 minute scene. Could have flashed back to it, something, anything. Because it would have been a sufficient end for the other characters, seeing them sacrifice themselves. But nope. All off screen. Yeah. So this movie makes it seem as if the last of the humans are going to drop for a specific reason, and there's never one given. And Umbrella aren't really taking them out, so why are they dying? I've gone over this again and again and again, but they keep bringing it up, so I just need to keep saying it. The ticking clock makes no sense. And again, they keep emphasizing Alice is gonna die, even though we know she won't. And yeah, there ends up being a fight between Alice, Claire, and Isaacs. It's fine, it's really cutty, and it's on the big elevator, so with the moving background and a lot of cuts, it's not fun to watch. But it's a small enough platform that they can't move too wildly, so the action is fairly focused on the middle of the screen. So it's the best hand-to-hand fight we get to see, which is not saying a lot for this movie, but it's fine. So again, because this movie wants to spite me personally, they go all the way up the elevator, and you may remember that that led to the laser corridor area. So they go into the laser corridor, steal lift scenes from the first movie of dodging lasers, as well as the fourth game. They bring in some laser patterns from that game and the way Alice dodges it from that game, like running up to the door and jumping behind it, and it's like, okay, nothing original here. Not to mention the fact that we have already done this climax before of Alice and Isaac fighting in a laser corridor. It was the end of Extinction, and they even go down the same route of having Alice like lose the fight and her on the floor with Isaac standing over her and doing this like mechanical laugh. Like, it's so similar. It's the same scene. It's the same fucking scene. And she pulls it off at the end. And why is this movie like this? So, yeah. After they finish the climax of the third movie over again, she explodes Isaac's with a grenade, so at least it doesn't finish the same way. But oh my god. So Alice escapes, is ready to release the antivirus, and an Isaac's clone shows up. And to try and stop her, but then multiple Isaac's clones show up and they all start fighting each other because they all believe they're the real Isaacs. And as a result, the antivirus gets released, and all the zombies drop. Like, the Eye of Mordor has just been destroyed. The Eye of Sauron has just been destroyed. The Night King himself has just been vanquished, and Alice drops for dramatic tension because the movie still makes you want to think that she's gonna die. And then the hive blows up. So Claire wakes up Alice, and it's revealed that healthy cells would survive, and that's why she wouldn't die, because she's still alive, and she also doesn't have the fucking T-virus in her anymore. So unlike the zombies, which are already dead, and then the Red Queen's like, we needed to know that you would be the working class hero we knew you would be, and to sacrifice yourself because none of the bourgeoisie pigs in Umbrella would do the same. And it's just like, I actually can't believe that this is the ending they went with, that they needed someone selfless to release the virus because rich people are selfish. And I mean, all I have to say is, I guess there's a reason why she's called the Red Queen. So, Alicia downloads her memories so Alice can have a childhood, even though we know, well, fuck it, forget it. The movie is over, and it ends on a cliffhanger because, as I stated before, the antivirus wouldn't spread that quickly. It spreads at the speed of the wind, so it could take years to travel around the world. So Alice's work isn't done. But she's alone, so she apparently left Claire alone in Raccoon City to die, I guess. The end. So, my final thoughts on the final chapter. Honestly, if you enjoy this movie, I'm happy for you. I'm glad you could see something in this that I don't. But to be honest, I think this is one of, if not the worst movie I have seen. And I love me my bad movies. And there's just something about this movie I can't get past. Like, it has such an emotional reaction, and it produces such negative feelings in me that I just can't look by it, because I grew up with these movies, I love them, and to see them so viciously, like, disregarded and ripped apart by these movies, it is very, like, it doesn't feel good. And it's especially when you consider that the things that these movies have been known for, like crazy action, over the top stupidity, things like that, aren't present in this movie. They try to downscale a lot of the action. It only has one real set piece, in my opinion, and they rip off a lot of other movies. They try to bring in such, like, sociological bullshit, like the fact that there is such a Malthusian lean from the higher ups in Umbrella. Like, that's a theory I hate as it is, because it is very rich orientating. Like, Malthus was a rich person as it was, and he was like, oh, the poors are procreating, they're destroying the world. But it came out of nowhere. Like, Wesker never expressed those opinions in previous movies. The clone Isaacs never expressed anything like that. And I can't get over the fact that they brought back Dr. Isaacs just because Game of Thrones was a thing. Like, in the movie that had all the characters coming back in clones, he was nowhere to be seen. And I cannot express enough the camera work in this movie. I know I've spent the past however long this review is going to be mentioning how bad it looks, but until you watch this movie, like, sit down and watch it. Like, me adding clips is all well and good, but the difference between watching the entire movie from start to end is, it's an experience, and it's not one that I recommend for anyone. But there are a lot of people that do find enjoyment in this movie, so there's nothing I can really say. All I can say is that I cannot recommend this movie in good faith to anyone. Like, even disregarding all the plot stuff, like, if I wasn't a fan and just watched this movie, the plot is stupid on its own, like, and not in a fun way. It's not over the top camp. It's trying to take itself far too seriously and does not succeed. The action isn't fun to watch. The movie's just not fun, and it's not engaging. Like, I feel as if people can feel strongly about the other movies one way or the other, but I've never heard a passionate defense of this movie in the way that I have the other ones. And I just think that it's not possible, because there is a lot of technical stuff bringing this down that goes beyond emotional connection. It's all well and good to say you think some things are enjoyable, and they may have elements that are enjoyed. Like, a lot of people find that Showgirls is a fun movie, but it's a bad movie, but it's still a functioning one. But this movie doesn't function. It relies on you knowing stuff, but that tears down that stuff as well. And it isn't standalone. but it doesn't work as part of the franchise. I think this movie fails in everything it tries to do. It either is something else. It could have been a commentary on rich people in society if it was standalone and these ideas were brought in from the beginning, but it's not. It's a part of an established franchise which they threw away to make this statement. So those are my feelings on the final chapter. It's not the ending I wanted for a franchise I loved, and it retroactively has made a lot of those entries a lot weaker. When you watch the first Resident Evil, you're like, oh, you're not a security guard, you're a clone that is like manufactured to be in this situation. Or you watch Apocalypse and it's like, oh, Umbrella want this to spread. Like, there's no point in fighting it. Like, none of the actions make sense anymore. None of the movies make sense anymore. It feels like it was for nothing. And yeah, that's why, like, I just feel as if a lot of series don't know how to end properly. But dear God, did this one go out of its way to be such a spectacularly bad ending? And that's all I have to say on it.